Salve ragazzuoli, bentornati in questo nuovissimo episodio. Da un bordello di tempo che manco qui su YouTube, ma siamo tornati. Siamo tornati e oggi con la presentazione del nuovo episodio Revenant, che uscirà appunto la prossima settimana, l'8 di ottobre. Ci sta tantissima carne al fuoco e regà, io non potrei essere più hypato del così. Si è parlato dell'episodio 2, abbiamo visto anche un po' di robette su Codename Frontiere. Tanta roba che arriverà in un video dedicato tra l'altro, ma in questo è un piccolo, oddio, in realtà dura un pochino questo video perché è appunto la conferenza intera. Ve la ricarico in modo tale che per chi magari non c'era su Twitch abbiamo fatto un po' di chiacchiere, quindi per chi si vuole godere l'esperienza autentica come è stata la conferenza, ve la ricarico qua sopra, tanto è l'intera durata della conferenza. Fatemi sapere un po' che ne pensate e raga, per le cose dettagliate arriveranno dei video dedicati in modo tale da non fare troppo confusione tra la parte vista in conferenza e la parte analizzata nell'articolo su Bungie.net. Quindi adesso, subito dopo questo video, ne uscirà un altro in cui parleremo appunto delle singole novità, dei singoli aspetti. Quindi, ragazzuoli, buona visione.
Of the witness,
Okay,
who
that
we
guy.
thoroughly destroyed,
Absolutely.
and his giant, smoky, billowing head dissipated
Yeah.
into a mist of darkness, which then coalesced with the traveler's light,
Yeah.
right, crystallizing
dangerous.
into the echoes,
Yeah.
which fell into the soul system.
Mm-hmm.
One of those fell, of course, to Maya Sundaresh, which we know from episode 1.
Yeah.
And it fundamentally changed how the Vex saw themselves. And now we're going to get the same treatment with the Scorn, because one of the echoes will be falling to Fikrul,
Yes.
leader of the undead Elixni army.
Yeah.
Bene,
And similarly, that
tornano
echo
gli
is gonna
infami,
prompt
che
the
bello.
Scorn to evolve, to see themselves in a new way, and to fundamentally change what they are. And
Yeah.
I won't spoil anything. I'll let players discover that for themselves. But suffice it to say, Fikrul is evolving his army, he's growing his army, and in order to build Scorn armies, you need a bunch of corpses.
Interesting.
Which is not necessarily in the best interest of the Elixni. So we will be teaming up
Yeah.
with Mithrax.
Speaking of Fikrul, we see him right here as well. Now we're taking a look at the new art for
Bella
episode,
l'artwork,
Revenant as
me
well.
coglioni.
Fikrul's gotten a bit of a glow up, I think.
Absolutely.
To quote the kids.
This whole episode is metal.
Yeah.
And I
Belle
think
le
that
armature, regà,
shows
guarda
it
qua.
Right there. That accurately depicts the tone of
Fighe.
the season.
Yeah. It's not messing around. I will say we won't watch the trailer today, but when folks see the trailer, you're right. Metal is the right word to use.
So much slaying. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
But the Elixni, of course, want to prevent this, and so we'll be teaming up with Mithrax, the Kell of House Light, and his daughter, Ido, the adorable Ido.
Must be
whom I love.
protected at all costs.
Absolutely.
Thoroughly, yeah.
And she will be bringing her expertise in herbology and ancient Elixni lore to help us craft tonics, to imbue us with the power that we need to battle this evolving Scorn army.
Interesting. That is, thank you, by the way, for not only, now you've narrative directed us into our segue as well, so thank you very much. Narrative design as well. And so I think we should go ahead and dive into a little bit of gameplay, starting over here with you, Clayton. So we just heard a little bit about some new tonics and everything. Can you tell us a little bit about where we are and what we're going to be doing here? This is the new apothecary, I believe?
That's right. So we're in the
Ok,
apothecary space,
quindi
and
questa è una
Jerome
nuova...
was just mentioning the tonics and potions that we'll be crafting. They come in two flavors.
Diventiamo
Combat
alchimisti
flavors,
praticamente.
They come in reward flavors.
Okay.
The combat flavors are going to enhance, or rather boost your artifact perks, specific ones.
Yeah.
Higher rarities of these tonics will boost multiple artifact perks, which is
Interesting.
really great.
Okay. Yeah.
And then on the reward side, we wanted to create a new or novel way to chase your gear and your weapons that you love.
Yeah.
And we took a lot
60
of inspiration
minuti
from the
durano.
success of Into the Light, where players got to attune to specific weapons. And so
Quindi
with
veramente
your
tocca
reward
di...
tonics, you'll be able to
Torniamo su
attune
Minecraft
to
a fare le
specific
pozioni.
weapons within the season.
Very nice.
They're not craftable in this season,
Okay.
which is important to note, but you will be able to target them, and they'll have enhanced perks.
Got it. Okay. So you'll be able to go ahead and chase down that god roll you're looking so desperately for
Yeah.
with the help of this. But also, you know, for the build crafters out there, they're going to have even more to dive into than maybe just
Ok, quindi questo praticamente servirà sia a boostare i perk dell'artefatto
Okay.
che a
So build
boostare
crafters make sure your
il
appetite's
drop
whetted and ready.
rate
There's
delle
plenty of
armi
stuff we can go ahead and
praticamente.
dive into.
Perché tramite queste
But
pozioni
we're
puoi
gonna go ahead and also
influenzare che
dive
tipo di
into,
drop
some of the meat
ottieni
and
dal mondo del
potatoes
gioco,
of
quindi
today's
tipo i
stream,
perk,
proverbially
metti
speaking.
caso sto cercando un'arma
As we're
particolare
on
con
our way
perk
over to
particolare,
Onslaught,
crafto la
Clayton, I just wanna
pozione
go ahead and also
e
start
quella là mi
there.
influenza.
Onslaught's getting kind of a new revamp this episode as well. You guys have left
Dura,
proverbially very few,
dura
if any,
un'ora
stones
il
untouched this time
potenziamento,
around.
ok.
Correct. Yeah. And so, we heard players' feedback. They wanted to see us invest in Onslaught. We are coming out with a brand new Onslaught called Onslaught Salvation.
Yeah.
We are going to have 3 maps that you'll be
Interesting.
in there. You will have some new defenses. We'll have enemy factions that will be fighting into the theme of this episode. We'll have the Scorn.
Ok, quindi in questo episodio, secondo episodio, tornerà anche Assalto Furioso, con nuove mappe 3, nuovi nemici, nuove difese. Ok.
Can you tell us what the Shadow Legion is doing here and why they might be in league with Fickrel, Jerome?
The Shadow Legion are bumming. They are in utter disarray. Their leader has been slain, and they are grasping to anyone who can keep them in power.
Yeah.
And Fickrel holds the most powerful artifact around now.
Got it.
So they will be doing his bidding, though it will be a tenuous alliance.
They're going with Fickrel's Riz just for right now, but that may not be the case later on.
That's right. We will do our best to stomp that out.
Thank you. All right, fair enough. Much appreciated. All right, so
Nuova
now
arma.
we are here. We're in Onslaught, and we're on Widow's Court.
Yeah. So PvP players will recognize this map, and they'll also recognize some of the changes that we've done to accommodate for the slaying, the amounts of slaying that is necessary for an Onslaught activity.
Yeah, a quick refresher for the folks at home that may not have dove into Onslaught recently or since Into the Light. There is the 10-level mode and the 50-level mode, isn't that correct?
Right, so Onslaught Salvation will also be coming with the 3 modes that they've had in the past, which is the playlist, 10-wave
Bella
mode,
sta arma, raga, mi sa che è l'arma stagionale? Oh mio Dio! Bella la torre, questa raga, per chi ha giocato a Destiny 1 se la ricorderà sicuramente.
Power enabled, so your armor and your weapons will matter even more. It will be at the start more difficult, but you can, through getting better, more power and grinding that artifact.
Ok, a differenza dell'Assalto Furioso vecchio, questo qui ci avrà il modificatore dei poteri abilitato, quindi
on the moon in
Okay.
D1?
Yeah.
Tell us, like, what's going on? We got some new defenses, obviously.
We have some new defenses. So, Ashley Baker is one of the.
Che cazzo ha fatto quello quando ha tirato la granata? Mi sa che è il pezzo nuovo esotico? Può essere per lo stregone? No, non penso. Forse è una mod dell'artefatto. Perché ha consumato la granata, l'ha tirata, sono spawnati tipo 3-4... interessante.
Okay.
And what the cool thing about that is that if you have build crafting with fragments or what have you within scorching, that will play off that if you're the rider.
Very nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can go ahead and really scorch everyone. To
Everyone.
as much as
Clumps of
possible.
enemies, those annoying demolitionists that come in front of the ADU and scare the hell out of you.
Yeah, they do. That was my words. Okay, they do scare that.
Yeah.
All right. So in the subject or in the topic of new defenses, so we're bringing back the turret from yesterdecade of Destiny, but also there's some other ones available as well. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe some new defenses that are on the way?
Yes. So the other one that we have is the airstrike, which will have 3 cannons when you purchase it. Or upgrade it, they'll be replenished there. And what that allows you to do is essentially mark anywhere on the ground.
Yeah.
And when an enemy or enemies run over it, a giant beam, it will come down from the sky.
Che figata, quindi la nuova difesa è una la torretta che abbiamo visto prima e l'altra è questa difesa aerea che illumini il bersaglio e poi arriva tipo l'attacco orbitale.
And actually, so just to double check as well, with the airstrikes, it's not just you plant it and it fires. It actually has to wait for someone to kind of trigger that.
Waits for someone to come over, yeah.
Nice, okay.
Much like the tripwire, which we are also updating for Onslaught Salvation. We've heard the feedback about the tripwires, and we want to bring their value up a little bit more. So now they're going to be exploding with stasis slow fields, and on higher upgrades they'll be creating stasis crystals for you to play off of if you have a stasis build.
Quindi hanno potenziato pure le mine. Vabbè, raga, a me Assalto Furioso è una modalità che mi è interessata per quando è uscita all'epoca, quindi why not?
And Onslaught Salvation will be available in the traditional Onslaught mode as well.
Just the tripwires, yeah.
Very exciting. Okay, nice. Good to see.
Raga, io vedo che sto stregone quando spara con sto lanciagranate o usa la granata arrivano delle cose di stasi che gli vanno a applicare protection.
There's obviously a decent chunk of new weapons arriving with Revenant, but let's start here. This is the new seasonal, or pardon me, episodic exotic.
Yeah, this would be the season pass exotic.
Yeah.
It's the
Ok, questa è l'esotica del season pass.
Primary ammo grenade launcher.
Yeah.
So we've only had one primary ammo grenade launcher before, which is Fighting Lion.
Fighting line.
Ha munizioni primarie.
Well, actually, it'll,
È vero, vero.
That's right, yeah.
make enemies volatile when it hits them, so like serious build crafting there, particularly
Yeah.
in PvE. But anyway,
I cannot wait.
so this is a bit different in that it's also a like projectiles travel in a straight line, so like mountaintop.
Yeah.
Hits pretty hard. But the
Ok,
exotic part
quindi è
of
lo
it is
stesso
that
telaio
if you
della
defeat enemies, you will,
della
have
mountain
these
top.
remnants, which will fill up the exotic
Della
bar,
vetta.
which you can see in the HUD when people aren't dead.
Yeah. It's the shade.
Yes.
Oh, they're an expert.
No, that's true. Yeah, this is, we should note for the Guardians at home, this is an expert mode, so they're
it is
taking
a
the hard
tough
way,
activity.
obviously.
But yeah, so when the bar reaches 50%, you can special reload, and your next shot will launch a special ammo brick for you and your allies to pick up.
Very nice.
And when you reach 100, you can special reload and launch heavy ammo. So this lets you really go in on a new type of support role, which
Yeah.
is like ammo support, which we haven't really seen in the game.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think on my side, I really just spend a lot of the time getting
Bello, sta cosa è fighissima, raga. Praticamente buildi degli stack che poi quando rilasci danno munizioni speciali. La prima attacca e la seconda attacca dà munizioni
You
pesanti.
could have one person in the fire team go all in on ammo generation, and
Yeah.
the other folks. build the same.
Buona questa, raga, figa. Cioè, più che altro è comoda. Come diceva il developer, cioè, permette una build di squadra, vedi, ha generato speciali.
But are there any new bosses or anything people can look forward to?
Right. So the Fickrel Scorn are also going to be coming out with what we're calling the Revenant Baron.
Okay.
And that thing is scary, and you'll see it on wave 6 here in a second when the players are instructed to go into like a Revenant nest and go and save the Elixni from being captured.
Yeah.
These Revenant Barons, they stalk the area, and when you kill them, they will create a Revenant totem which flies in a random direction, leaving a trail so you can kind of like stalk it, find it.
Yeah.
You have to kill it before it would respawn the Revenant Baron.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there's some hide and seek gameplay there. Yeah, and so we also have for the rewards side, starting on wave 30, set 3, players will have a small chance to get a fully masterwork double perked episodic weapon.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, and on expert, like we're playing, if you remember the bonus chest on harder difficulties will show up. So if you're playing on expert, you have 2 chances.
Okay, all right. So really make sure you're pushing through those final levels. Try and hit that ceiling of level 50 so you can really facilitate the loot grind as much as you can.
100%.
Che quindi hanno buffato pure un po' i loot per consentire l'ottenimento di armi masterworkate, eccetera.
An
Ok.
appearance here in Onslaught. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so we'll be with the expert mode only. We'll be having Banes throughout the activity, and we'll also be adding mods. So it's really nice to have them show up because they add another layer of replayability into expert. You don't know if you're going to get the gaseous one where you got a dot on you, or if you have to break line of sight, but it adds a fun variability within the gameplay, so every wave feels different.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have, oh, please.
I just wanted to point out here,
please.
you'll notice 2 things. First off, the fire team is tracking that Revenant Baron, just like you said.
Yeah.
And also freeing captured Elixni. And as to why people want to keep Elixni captives alive, I'll save that for the players to discover.
Sounds devious.
The other thing is that you'll see Crow chiming in a lot. He's features prominently in the season.
Right, yeah.
Because he is inadvertently, of course, responsible for creating Fickrel, and so it's his responsibility as the new Hunter Vanguard to rectify his old problem.
Interesting. Even though he can't be like, hey man, that was Ultron, that wasn't me. He's going to step up and take responsibility for that.
Absolutely.
Old Fickrel's fickle out there.
Ok, quindi vabbè, ovviamente il corvo sarà coinvolto nella narrazione perché giustamente prima Uldran ha creato gli infami, quindi ok, ci sta.
Other Elixni, some venerable old school Elixni that poke their heads in that you'll see some drama with. I won't say any more than that.
Fair.
But it will be in everyone's interest to see Fickrel go down here.
Okay, got it. A little bit of enemy, my enemy. In this case, they're all our enemy.
That's right.
Fair enough. Actually, really quickly, Clayton, I know we kind of touched on several different subjects here between the different defenses, different enemies, the different kind of, structural opportunities that Onslaught Salvation has provided you. What was it like, sitting down with a team and sort of looking at this new refresh on this activity? Like, did you guys take any big challenges for yourself where, like, we want to do this?
Yeah, we knew we just wanted to build and evolve and just do more.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
It's a metal episode. We want to do Onslaught. Let's metal it up.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So things like the turret, things like the Revenant Baron. We really want to play into the themes of this, like, kind of haunting, spooky
figo.
episode.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that in the roll art. You're seeing that in the.
Ragazzi, sono stracasato che hanno ridato vita a Salto Furioso, perché era una bellissima modalità quando uscì, quindi secondo me ci sta che l'abbiano presa in considerazione.
Oh, really?
We've heard feedback from there. It's taking a little bit longer. We want to bring our goal is to bring that in line with the rest of the maps of the original Onslaught. So we're making some updates there to get that to go.
Very exciting. So reasons, obviously, to dive into all versions of Onslaught as we go ahead and move into Revenant.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Actually, and while we're here, out here, slaying out as best as we can against this new undead army, Chris, we're going to have obviously a slew of new episodic weapons arriving this time.
Yeah.
I know we've kind of spoken about this this breach loading grenade launcher. Are there any other notable ones that you're most interested in, or most excited, rather, I should say, in bringing back?
Yeah, there are a few weapons that I'm going to personally be chasing.
Vedi, ha generato pesanti. Ok, quindi quando c'hai quella barretta in basso a sinistra carica, al massimo puoi generare pesanti. Mentre a metà puoi generare speciali. Vestigian Alchemy, eccolo là.
New perk Envious Arsenal, which is like directly targeted at damage rotations. So whenever you do damage with the other two weapons, the weapon reloads.
Yeah.
So you can just cycle between your weapons, get it back, and it also has Chill Clip, which on a double fire is particularly cool.
That's like devious, honestly.
Twice or 4 times.
Yeah.
There's also some cool synergies with the new perks on some of the other weapons. So the hand cannon can run the new perk Rhyme Stealer, which every time you shatter a stasis crystal or a frozen enemy will grant you frost armor.
Yeah.
Which is the new verb we introduced.
Ok, quindi ci sta un nuovo cannone portatile col nuovo perk, un nuovo fucile a pompa che è quello che sta usando adesso nel gameplay.
Arc Precision, and that's got the new perk. Shoot, what is the name of that?
My memory's failing me.
Anyway, it directly ties back into Jolt, right? Like the Vault Shot is great, but it requires a reload on your weapon after a kill.
Yeah.
This one's triggered on sustained damage, so you will jolt the target. And then the perk I'm going for in the other column is Loose Change, which every time you apply a debuff gives you a reload speed buff. So you'll be constantly having
ok, raga, i nuovi perk sono interessanti, poi ovviamente ne parleremo bene quando ci metteremo mani sopra, però da questa preview la carne al fuoco è tanta. Figa pure la boss room di sta mappa. Questo è il nuovo pompa. E arriviamo al nocciolo dell'episodio, il rompighiaccio che torna, il ritorno del re.
But we've got a version here which we think lets you get back into that fantasy of just like always having uptime on the weapon without letting you just hang back and like plink away at enemies from range, which you never like. So the way it works is assists and final blows with other weapons will just generate ammo for Icebreaker.
Got it.
It's got like a 10-round magazine, which is also the same size as reserves.
Yeah.
So the play is that in between boss damage phases or something, you and your team slay out, and as long as you're getting assists or kills, you'll come back in fully loaded.
Ok, hanno reworkato il rompighiaccio leggermente, quindi le munizioni le genera sugli assist e le kill con le altre armi. Vabbè, è una leggera bilanciata che non fa sta tutti i player lontani dal boss e farlo picchiata da lontano praticamente. Questo è l'artefatto nuovo, ok.
But Chris, I know obviously last time around, if I had to kind of paint it with a meta, I'd say rather it'd be very focused on sniper rifles, solar. If there was a similar theme for this particular artifact, what would it be?
One will
so it goes very hard into stasis. Like touches all of the stasis verbs. If you want to make
ok, vabbè, questa stagione, raga, sarà particolarmente incentrata sulla stasi, come si era potuto immaginare, e sull'arco, da quanto vedo.
So we've got overload grenade launchers, which is great, like tagging those
lanciagranate pure parecchio buffati.
Also bringing back a variant of like everyone's favorite grenade launcher artifact perk, Breach and Clear.
Oh yes.
Oh, con Cassive Reload.
And then when you boost it, you can get the second part of that.
Questo è bello forte dei mod, raga. Per chi se ricorda i periodi d'oro dell'anarchia. Mamma mia.
I will admit I'm very selfishly excited to see anti-barrier scout rifle back. It's been so long.
Anti-barrier.
I've missed it.
Barrier scout is great.
I'm going to pretend like that's just for me, for my own benefit today.
We're trying something a bit different with this artifact as well, in that the first column is all
bello quello.
Mods, and the final column is all of the pinnacle.
Ti permette di prendere tipo ramento senza averci una classe prismatica o da vuoto. Interessante. Comunque, raga, lo stregone da stasi sarà molto molto incredibile. Io già ho in mente delle build interessanti. Una settimana manca, una settimana. Di carne al fuoco ce n'è tanta, vediamo. Vediamo.
Lean into one play style if again you're like me and want to run double grenade launchers. This feels like a remarkably great season to be doing that, especially with the fighting line buff. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Ok, vabbè, fammi vedere gli ultimi due per favore.
Wraps us up for this particular segment of Onslaught, but there's also a couple more things that I wanted to go ahead and tease for the arrival of Act 1. For starters, an old favorite strike is going to be making its return. The inverted spire is returning, but Clayton, it's not coming back exactly as people remember it, is it?
Nope, we're taking an approach and adjusting all the encounters, and you'll see more Vex than what you're used to.
True. I can confirm. My compatriot on the social media team,
spirale invertita e tornata.
The only thing I'll spoil is if you like death lasers, you're gonna have a great time out there.
Ecco fatto, hanno messo i laser dentro spirale invertita.
Act 2, mind you, of Revenant, and I'm going to read this to make sure I get it right, inspired from a fan favorite activity from Destiny's past. We're going to go ahead and bring back an activity, but we're not going to tell you anything outside of that. So chat, speculate, let us know what you think. Go ahead and shout us out on Twitter or wherever it is.
Oh mio Dio, no, raga. No, raga, la prigione degli anziani torna.
Pardon me, for the next segment. But in the meantime, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and share a little bit of what's
raga, secondo me torna la prigione degli anziani.
Thanks for having us. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having us.
I mean, it takes a lot to make me look good.
Ma raga, se torna la prigione degli anziani è finita.
Now, as we transition into
Belli!
we've got what we've called in my notes the cool stuff segment, and I think it lives up to that. So we'll go ahead and show you a little bit more of what's to be arriving with Revenant, including what you're seeing here on your screen right now. This is the second earnable skimmer that's going to be arriving in Destiny 2. The aptly named, we'll wait for it to highlight, the Zerfboard. I was so glad that was the name of stuck. As you can see, it features some very unique 9-style styling, inspired by Xur himself. Both top and bottom are very arted up. The top's obviously a little bit more visible here, but if you do a sweet front flip or back flip, if you're capable of it, you can go ahead and see all sides of it. Notably, this is going to be earnable. So if you go ahead and start saving those strange coins now, it's going to cost you 97 of them. So if you're like me,
con le strane monete.
Spending all those extra strange coins,
97 strane monete, vabbè, ci sta.
Maybe save up for a week or
Tanto
two.
li farmi.
Also, because I work here, I've started saving up already, spoiler alert. But the Zerfboard will be available with the arrival of Revenant. So make sure and go ahead and grab the first earnable skimmer since the Guardian Games. In addition to that, we obviously mentioned very recently that we're going to be having a new dungeon arriving with
Ovviamente si parla del dungeon, Vespers Host.
Dungeon race in cooperation with our friends over at Twitch Rivals. We've put the sign up link out there. It's available on our social media channels or in the Twid, or if you prefer
raga, ci partecipiamo alla dungeon race.
/Twitch Rivals. You can go ahead and head
Doc, ci stai?
Sign up with your fire team and make sure that you're ready to go ahead and take on this new challenge, which will again also provide some additional chances for Bungie rewards. You can see here on screen, we've got a look at the hoodie that will be earnable along with the bracelet. But perhaps what's most interesting about is that as a part of the dungeon race, if you're one of the top 3 teams to go ahead and cross that proverbial finish line, then we'll be able to ship out a special embroidered version with your gamer tag on it as well. So make sure and go ahead and dive on in and prepare to try and cross that finish line first. And now we're also going to take one quick look. Festival of the Lost is going to be arriving with
torna ovviamente l'evento di Halloween.
You took a chance to vote on some armor sets for yourselves. So
queste erano le armature che avevamo votato ai tempi.
Wizard set. I myself am very looking forward to adding this to my collection.
Vabbè, il cacciatore c'ha belle armature in realtà, carine.
It's just going to only dial up more and more. Up next, our friendly neighborhood warlocks. You've got this to look forward to, including what I think we affectionately refer to as probably the coolest pants we've all ever seen over here at Bungie. And
bello il casco.
Breaking out from the crowd crowd the good wizards this time around. Titans, you went ahead and voted for it this way. You're going to have the chance to go ahead and add this into your arsenal as well. So make
Bello
sure
il
that
petto
you're
del
prepared to go
Titano.
ahead and dive on into Festival of the Lost and grab this stuff once it's available. And I'm going to be doing that. So
Vabbè, le armature sono carine,
but
raga,
either
dai,
way,
non
make sure
sono
you're ready to go
brutte.
ahead and update your fashion where you can.
Raga,
But
le
now,
premissi ci
we get to
stanno
move on to
tutte.
our second segment of the show,
Tocca vedere come si evolve la
where we're
situazione,
gonna go ahead
perché
and talk a little bit more about what's further on down the road. So we've talked about what's just around the corner. Let's look forward to frontiers. And here to help me discuss
Oh,
those
parliamo un po' di
topics today,
frontiere,
that
va,
topic today as
vediamo.
well, rather, are these two fine individuals to my left, which you've met at some point or another, but again, we'll make sure and introduce them to everyone out there in the crowd. We'll start with you first, Allison. Allison, how's it going?
It's going so good. I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
We're up so early. I'm doing well, thank you so much.
Good.
Allison, obviously narrative director here on Destiny at Bungie. Can you tell anyone who may not have seen you in a Vidoc or one of our past streams a little bit more about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So I'm the narrative director for D2. It is me and my team's job to tell stories. It's our job to take care of our characters, of our arcs. We make you laugh, we make you cry, we make you have feelings that you normally don't have to have in your usual day-to-day life.
I was raised not to feel feelings, so it's a very upsetting experience when I do.
Feelings are distressing, I understand. We also get to plan future things, planning ahead for the arcs to come.
Yes.
And the
that's what we
saga.
talked about.
Bella la lore,
We'll
figa,
have a little
però
bit to dive
dai.
into as well today. I know, I'm so excited. And then
Era,
also sitting next
vogliamo
to
vedere
her,
cose croccanti
Robbie
qui.
Stevens, assistant game director here at
Quindi
Bungie.
ok,
And
sì,
I've
parliamo
not
anche di
seen him
lore, però.
since back in my Mixer days, but if you've tuned into these Bungie streams in the past, you've seen him as well. Robbie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Andy, and I think you've grown a lot since those days.
Thank you. It's been so long, right?
Yeah.
My badge changed and everything. For the folks that may not know you or may not know what a game director does, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you
lui
do?
è il game
So
director.
one of the main things I do as assistant game director for
Bene.
Destiny 2 is I work on the creative direction and vision for where we're
No,
going.
è un
with
assistente al
Destiny,
game director,
coming
ce
up
lo
in the
ricordiamo
future
bene il
with
game
Codename
director.
Frontiers. So I get to work with our game director, Tyson Green, and Allison Lerner, our narrative director, and a bunch of our other creative leaders on how we shape the future of Destiny to come.
Very exciting, which we are going to be diving into now. I know we've obviously released some blogs about the Codename Frontier stuff already. If you've been out on Bungie.net reading the Dev Insight blogs, there's been a good amount to dive into, but our friends over on the
Vero,
community
vero,
as well
beh,
have been
ci hanno
helping
dato
us
già
kind of,
abbastanza
dig more
informazioni
into
su
what the audience
Frontiere,
feedback
però
has been, what the
ovviamente
players are saying. And so,
parliamone un
we've had
attimo,
obviously some topics come
giustamente,
up that
quindi
I think we should just go ahead and dive on into.
Let's party.
Absolutely. Okay, that's the right attitude. Let's party at this early in the morning.
Hell yeah.
Always the answer I want to hear. So,
Veramente sono
Robbie,
le
we'll go ahead and
7:30
start
di
with
sera,
you.
però
One of the things we said is that these expansions are going to be medium-sized. Can you help us understand a little bit more about what that means?
Yeah, definitely. So expansions are changing going forward with Codename Frontiers. And so our philosophy behind this is moving from one really big, all-consuming tentpole moment that kind of takes all the oxygen in the room at one point in the year to two what we consider big tentpole moments happening in each year.
ok, vabbè, in realtà questo è uno shift molto interessante, raga, perché passano, come diceva adesso l'assistente game director, da un grande DLC come potrebbe essere la forma ultima a due piccoli DLC però in un anno. Quindi non c'hai il big momento e poi a scemare, ci avresti due big momenti che tendenzialmente dovrebbero tenere alto la popolazione del gioco e l'attenzione al gioco, quindi ci sta.
What comes with it is like each expansion is going to have its own unique version of a campaign and post-game experience that
Ovviamente ogni DLC avrà la sua campagna e post-campagna.
How things like the Dreaming City or the Pale Heart from the Final Shape had worked, where those beyond those initial campaign experiences, there's like further things to explore and secrets to uncover. And
vabbè, ci sta, giustamente, ragazzi, se sviluppano una narrazione con una destinazione, quella destinazione rimane pure dopo la campagna, quindi c'hai del contenuto sulla destinazione da fare, giusto? Cioè, è fighissimo in realtà, perché il cuore valido, raga, è una destinazione bellissima, peccato che sia stata, tra virgolette, abbandonata, però.
Again, they're going to tell a really compelling story as part of our next saga. But I
Vabbè, ovviamente ogni DLC avrà la sua storia collegata tra di loro per la nuova saga che
Yeah, I know that's
è
something like,
in
I've
arrivo.
kind of overheard some of the conversations where when it comes to these expansions as well, obviously the corollary, pardon me, we're using today is Rise of Iron, but like these are going to be brand new experiences, things that we just like haven't released before in the past.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that as well, or?
Yeah, definitely. And so for Codename Apollo specifically, the first expansion coming up with Frontiers.
Il primo DLC sarà Codename Apollo, se ne avevamo
you're
really
really
visto
journeying
pure
to a Metroidvania
sul
inspired
settimanale,
destination,
sull'articolo,
that's our guiding light for how we're creating this new location. And so this new destination is going to feature a non-linear campaign that puts you know, in the driver's seat of exploring its world and its story.
E questo è quello che avevamo letto sempre nell'articolo, cioè che il primo DLC, ovvero col codename Apollo, sarà una nuova destinazione e sarà un modo di narrare la storia non lineare. Questo significa che possiamo scegliere noi quale missione giocare e in che ordine giocarle. Quindi, figo.
We knew that the narrative structure had to match, like had to complement that structure as well. And so the way that we're going to treat non-linearity in Codename Apollo is when you arrive at our destination, which is a new destination, you'll be able to decide if you want to go to region D or region C, or maybe you want to go check out B, because that's going to be where you get the ability that allows you to access region A so you can talk to that character that you really like. We really want that sense of the player being in the driver's seat, of being able to decide where and how they want to explore and discover the secrets that we have in the
Vabbè,
world.
figo. Questo sicuramente, raga, è un cambio di direzione che porta aria nuova, quindi va bene. Anche perché, secondo me, per Destiny potrebbe essere una narrazione giusta, azzeccata,
So we'll have the normal kinds of like activity dialogue that you normally experience in a campaign, but there's also between 25 and 30 different threads of stories that you can discover and chain together after you complete an activity.
Madonna, raga, sono un bordello di diramazioni,
You see that little thread of that shining rock somewhere, you can really just afford to pull on it and just dive in by the sound
Absolutely, that's what we want you to do.
Okay, that's awesome. So actually, let's go ahead and stay on the topic of story here for just a second as well. You know, I think that there's been some conversations about the future of narrative Destiny, which has obviously been so central to the experience, so core to our characters and our stories. There's been some concern that maybe the new structure might not afford the opportunity for as much story in the past. Can you tell us a little bit about what you guys are planning and what that means?
That would be news to me if it suddenly vanished. I like what
Allison,
I do.
please stay.
Please don't let go. Yeah, exactly.
Is this how we find out?
No, story is Destiny. Like what makes Destiny Destiny is that beating heart of story at its core. That's not going anywhere.
Vero. Quello che rende Destiny Destiny è la lore che c'è dietro, la narrazione che c'è dietro, quindi...
Like part one is pacing. With these 2 tentpole beats a year, the feeling that the world is changing and growing and moving is going to come much quicker now, which means that we can move the plot along at a much quicker pace than we used to. Part 2 is focus.
Vero, anche il fatto di averci 2 DLC all'anno, regà, spinge la narrazione un botto. Adesso siamo costretti, tra virgolette, costretti a aspettare l'anno dopo per vedere le conseguenze del DLC prima, quindi...
And so that means we're going to tell a more focused story and with pacing that keeps up with what fans want.
Yeah. I mean, it's also, too, it's interesting because, you know, obviously the narrative is one big part, the story you're telling, the words on the page, but another part of it, you know, given that we have the unique opportunity with a medium like video games, is how players interact with it. We've seen some comments online and some notable conversations about, you know, go talk to vendor X, head over to the holodeck and say hello to this other person, go back to vendor X and shake their hand one more time. Can you tell us a little bit about that structure, what you guys are planning on?
Yeah, it drives us bonkers too. No, we believe that everything should be questioned, right? Like we should be questioning that structure and we should be reinvestigating it and starting
meno male che se la pongono come
we're going to be deliberately shaking it up. By the time we get to Apollo, that loop, that pattern is more or less gone. We're shaking things up a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Allison spoke to it earlier, but all those threads that you're pulling on, right? Like these are characters out in the world that you're exploring and discovering, right, as part of your journey.
Oh, meno male, raga, cambia sta struttura, sto pattern di fai la missione, torna al vendor, parla con l'altro vendor, torna di all'ologramma, riparla col vendor. Meno male. Certo, dobbiamo aspettare Apollo, però, raga, meglio tardi che mai.
We want to keep the player out in the world, out and exploring and get information to them.
Quello che dicevamo anche quando lavoriamo allo sviluppo di Ancestors del gioco è non toglie il controllo, tra virgolette, del giocatore dal gioco. Cioè, continuarlo a fare, sta in giro nel mondo, a farlo girare. Quindi, col metodo che c'è adesso, siamo costretti, tra virgolette, a tornare sull'enclave, tornare sull'Helm, tornare in torre, parlare con quello, ritornare indietro.
Can you tell us a little bit about what we're looking at?
Bella sta
No,
concept art.
I can't. On purpose. What I can tell you is that this is some concept art of our new destination, which, like I said, is a new place that we haven't been to before, which means that these people that you're seeing are people that we haven't met yet. We're going to learn a lot more about them, and I love
Nuove
this piece.
personalità, nuovi personaggi.
Same with some of the other art that we've shared so far. The more you start to see things that are kind of familiar all the way out at this new location.
Yeah, it's like
so lots of fun things to discover.
What's the symbol on that banner? Is this a seance or a wedding ceremony?
Bello.
I know, and I'm not telling.
Telling a single soul.
Nope.
Okay, all right. Plenty to dive into, including we've got another piece of concept artist here.
Raga, ve lo giuro, io non vedo l'ora di cominciare a fare i devlog del giogo che stiamo sviluppando, perché qua esce fuori da roba fighissima. Back to Destiny, scusate, piccola parentesi.
We really think about what is a storied history that's happened here. What's something that
Belle ste concept art, raga. Fighe. Queste sono tutte destinazioni nuove dei prossimi DLC,
I love about it that's really resonant with me with a lot of the early creative discussions we had on
interesting,
it.
molto interesting.
We wanted this place to feel like an exotic world that is just tailor-built around the joy of discovery, right? And then so within this new destination in Apollo, you're going to be discovering powerful abilities in order to uncover secrets in this location and in order to carve a path to the great mystery at the heart of the planet. And that's what these concepts, when I look at them in retrospective as the team is now actively building a bunch of this stuff, it's very evocative for me from that feeling of hey, how can, it's something Tyson and Alice and I talk a lot about is how can we get that grand mystery in that game, that feeling that there's something right around the corner, that it's kind of at the heart, has been at the heart of Destiny for a long time. And as we've been closing down the Light Dark saga, it's been an amazing roller coaster ride, but we want to expand and grow Destiny, and we want to change it. And that's what I think these concepts are starting to speak for us, trying to show not just us telling of some of that direction.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting to see because I think one thing I've heard you guys talk about a lot as well is, just the inspirations that you want to obviously provide the players. You build these new worlds, but you guys have been diving into a lot of crazy subject matter just on your own to get inspired as well. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of some of the fun reading or listening you've been doing as you've been going through this?
Sure. One of the fun parts about being a creative is that you have to fill the tank with something. And
certainly.
So that means doing a lot of research, finding a lot of other targets in media, or even just what music you're listening to while you're working on a script, right? I know for our team, something that really inspired us was music of the 1960s. We've listened to a lot of early prog, a lot of King Crimson, and a lot of, The Doors and Jefferson Airplane. We also, there's a lot of Slaughterhouse-5 inside of this.
Cheery.
We love to look for inspiration outside of just games, because there's so much.
Vabbè, è giusto, raga, cioè come creator, come creativo ci sta che guardi fuori da quello che stai a fare e prendi ispirazione.
Allison as the narrative director, much better at referencing text. I'm a little bit more of a visual guy.
Is that the nice way to say that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you.
Social media and TikTok have rotted us all.
They've just rotted me.
But when we talk about all this inspirational media, one of the things Destiny also being a sci-fi game that we talked a bunch about was for Apollo was Scavenger's Reign. That's something that Allison, remember in early concepting we were talking about, and we're like, oh wow, that media, that TV show is so great because it's familiar in some ways, but as you get closer and you really look at their world, it's really strange and different and weird and mysterious. And it really kind of just builds this halo of allure around it that is something that really spoke to us when we're thinking about how can we introduce something new to the game at the top of Frontiers.
That's exciting. All right. So there's obviously a lot of new inspiration.
Raga, le premesse, come dicevamo prima, sia per l'episodio che per Frontiere, sono tantissime. Veramente tante, cioè fanno solo che spera bene, e meno male. Vediamo.
Going to a mansion, a really nice, really big, fancy house.
Okay, not just in the tutorial to Tomb Raider.
No,
Okay,
like a nice.
Okay, thank you.
So you're going in and looking at it a parlor room or something, and maybe the owner of the house tells you there's a secret door somewhere in here, and you're looking around and you can see the door that you came through, and you can see the window, but it kind of looks like a dead end, there's nothing in here. And everyone knows that a good secret door comes from behind a bookcase.
Right.
You go up to a bookcase and pull on a book or a little statue that's been in front of your face the whole time, but you just haven't had the focus on it yet. And if you pull on that, it opens up the secret door, and suddenly what was a dead end looks like an entryway.
Yeah.
And that's what this saga is.
Okay, that's very exciting. And it won't be like Young Frankenstein where I get stuck in the door. Or
you will not get stuck in the door. No, I will not let anyone get stuck inside.
Not even for comedic
Matthew McConaughey behind the bookcase. Murph.
Ok, all right, thank you again.
Però è una bella metafora per descrivere come sarà la storia, l'evoluzione di Destiny. Bellissima metafora.
All right. So we've seen some feedback on reward tiers and how there might not be enough variation in loot for players to go ahead and get encouraged to go ahead and keep chasing down more gear. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're all building right now and kind of what that means to you?
Yeah, so this is like very valid feedback, just acknowledging that in the first place, because the first thing we announced was just like, hey, there's some new tiers, right? And then obviously, yeah, you're going to look at that and go like, well, I have a bunch of amazing armor and weapons now, so like, why does this matter in the future? And so totally, yeah, that feedback makes a lot of sense to us. And so what's really top of mind and has been for us for a little while now is how we can make not only chasing gear within individual tiers interesting and the whole system interesting, but also how we can make those higher tiers of gear compelling to chase, right? To have that mountain to climb. And so that comes in two forms that I can talk a little bit about today. One, I can go a little more in depth on, which is our next generation armor. That's going to be coming with Codename Frontiers. And then we have some really early thinking for weapons.
Okay.
And so for armor...
Ok, quindi avremo un nuovo sistema di armature.
If you wouldn't mind, Robbie.
Yeah, I would be
Okay,
happy
thank
to.
you.
So yeah, let me lean in here to focus a little bit. So for next generation armor, we really want to make armor valuable again. We want to make it easier to
Un nuovo
understand,
sistema di
and
armature
we
era
really
ora.
want it to have create new build crafting identities. That's something that's like really close to home for us right now, because we've had a similar system for quite a while now. And so part of making it valuable, easy to understand, new identities is one of the big pieces is going to be a large stat rework to the armor.
Ok, reworkano le statistiche. Ci sta, perché adesso sono abbastanza confusionali.
Individual piece of armor. So it makes it way easier to quickly compare pieces of gear and be like, oh, this one's better than that one. I'm building into a specific, discipline, strength, whatever, and you can better understand that. That also means that there's going to be fewer things we call dump stats. Like you looking at a piece of gear and going like, oh man, it only gives me +5 resilience. I don't really want that.
Trash it.
Yeah, exactly. And like, there's still going to be cases where it's like, oh, it has a lot of resilience, but that's not what I'm building into. But it's just going to be way easier to just glance at stuff.
Very cool.
And figure it out.
Ok, vabbè,
that,
questo
right,
raga,
how can we answer that question of how can next-gen armor have this new build crafting identity? It also, we want to bring new things to the table, right? And so part of the stat rework, we're going to go beyond 100, Andy.
We go beyond sometimes.
Yeah, we've gone beyond light.
That's right.
Yep, beyond dark. With prismatic,
what
this
else
just makes sense.
Now we're gonna go beyond 100 with armor. Who knew? Like, who knew that's where we go?
It was just hidden in a
Saliamo sopra i 100 di statistiche. Buono.
Thank you. No one double check that.
Yeah, don't check our homework. So when we go, so what I mean by going beyond 100. So let's talk about strength, for instance. And so this is some early thinking from the team. So in the 1 to 100 range, it would still reduce your melee cooldown like it does today. It would still have that, so that would still be really easy to understand.
Quindi da 0 a 100 riduce il cooldown.
200 range, beyond 100, every point into strength at that point would then give you a chance in order to activate a second melee when power melee becomes charged. So basically you get double melee. You get to double throw your shields or double throw your knives or throw whatever warlock, space magic stuff they throw in. I don't play warlocks.
I'm a hunter. I get
it. I'm just
e questo è il motivo per cui i stregoni fanno schifo.
But really, like, the key thing to there,
gioca
right,
titano,
like,
lui gioca cacciatori,
sta
sta a posto.
for what you want to build craft into that's very different than just like, oh, hey,
quindi raga, da 0 a 100 riduce il cooldown, da 100 a 200, vabbè, da quanto sarà al massimo, ti dà una possibilità in percentuale di ottenere una seconda carica di abilità.
Right now is also renaming that stat from strength to melee, so that it's just very specific when you look at the gear and kind of like know what it's
cut right to that chase, right?
Yeah. Another big thing that's coming with next generation armor to the game is set bonuses. And so this is something, I know, right? Yeah, like they're back.
So ready.
We've done like some small versions of it in the past. Have been like individual releases, but we're looking at this as like a holistic new system that's coming with pretty much every piece of new legendary armor set that we create, starting with Frontiers.
Okay.
And so these set bonuses are going to come in the form of wearing 2 or 4 pieces of a 5-piece set. So that gives you flexibility in order to wear an exotic at any point. And then also allows you to mix and match different sets. So you can actually start looking at like gear and go like, oh, I have tier 1, tier 2 of one set, tier 3 of other, and I actually want to like mix match them together for
Ok, figo. Figo questo. Praticamente ogni set d'armatura avrà il suo perk intrinseco, quindi un po' come le armature stagionali che ti danno bonus per il vendor stagionale, e saranno settate da 2 a 3, quindi il 3 è il massimo stack e il 2 è il minimo stack che ci puoi avere, così poi mixa pure i pezzi esotici nell'armor e poi mixa i pezzi dei armor tra di loro. Figo.
That's just like one example, but yeah, it's the whole space is just going to like really expand and just become a lot easier to manage in your head and also build complexity into. And so I'm super,
no, figo, raga, figo.
Yeah, no, you guys obviously have been doing a lot of great
Ci
stuff.
sta il rework all'armor effettivamente, anche perché, raga, l'ultimo rework all'armor tipo oltre la luce, mi ricordo, parecchi anni fa, cioè.
Right now, we wanted to talk about next gen armor because we have a lot of juicy, good plans coming together right now. But for weapons, the thing I can say is that like in the game today, we have higher tiers of weapons to chase, like adepts and raid weapons, right? And so those things with them come with exclusive perks that basically, cut above the noise of other weapons you might be earning in any individual release. And so we know from the tiering perspective of weapons themselves that like, hey, we already have this kind of touchstone for us that we see that works pretty well, and it's like, so it's really like, how can we meet or clear that bar, right? Like, how can we create those exclusive chases at the top of that aspirational mountain for players to climb? So,
yeah. So actually, additionally too, we've heard some concerns that,
Ok, quindi praticamente reworkano anche le armi dandogli un po' più di senso alla distribuzione dei perk e a quanto effettivamente anche un'attività sia rewardante.
Yeah, so just to like make sure to clear the air here a little bit, right? Like every expansion, every season, every raid, every dungeon, there's gonna be new weapons, right? We're not slowing down there in terms of like making a lot of compelling new weapon content.
Cool. Okay.
But the thing about reprisals and revisions that I think is true for a lot of Destiny players is like you have that favorite gun, right? You have that gun that you loved at one point in time, and over time it's just not as useful in the contemporary tuning, activity, sandbox, whatever, right? Like just something about it isn't as good over the years. And so, like we did with the Brave Arsenal and Into the Light, like that's our touchstone for like, hey, how can we go in and update, fan favorite.
Ok, quindi praticamente anche le armi vecchie verranno comunque mantenute aggiornate in qualche modo. Per esempio adesso ha fatto l'esempio dell'assalto furioso con le armi, con l'arsenale dei Shax. Cioè, è comunque una cosa interessante per continuare a usare quell'arma.
To all the Guardians who are going to dive into Revenant and get to try Chroma Rush for the first time.
Oh yeah.
I am trying that gun for the first time. It's so good. I'm glad it's coming back.
It's great.
Okay, that all sounds awesome. So everything that Robbie just spoke to, there's going to be a next gen armor article going up on Bungie.net after the stream wraps up. But Robbie, is there anything else you want to say?
Quindi ne parlerà subito dopo l'articolo. Cioè subito dopo la live uscirà l'articolo su Bungie.net.
Immediately becomes posed of like why does it matter, right? Like why do I care about it? And so we've talked a little bit, right, about the fact that there's going to be customizable difficulty coming in Destiny with Frontiers, and then also
le difficoltà personalizzabili, queste le caso strafighe, cioè la possibilità di personalizzare la sfida, il livello di sfida che c'è all'interno dell'attività, ci sta. Quindi anche il livello di ricompense di conseguenza si evolve.
And then the new modifier systems, like these are all things that are being built into a structure so that you're going to need to chase that high tier gear. You're going to need to craft that complex set.
Ovviamente poi per inseguire il loot che ti è stato creato, ti hanno messo il livello di difficoltà per cui tu sei, tra virgolette, non dico obbligato, ma invitato a seguire quel livello di difficoltà in modo tale da ottenere quel loot tanto desiderato. Ci sta?
Awesome.
Yeah. Should be fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, plenty more information on that to arrive on the blog that's going to be arriving on Bungie.net shortly after this. But I don't think I'm going to be able to top what Robbie just said.
Dunque ragazzotti, siamo giunti alla fine di questo lunghissimo video che è l'intera live dei developer. Fatemi sapere voi cosa ne pensate di queste anticipazioni sul secondo episodio e su Frontiers. Io diciamo che un'idea mia me la sono fatta, poi vedrete i video separati in analisi dettagliata e riassuntiva di questa live. E nulla ragazzuoli, noi ci becchiamo in live tutti i giorni e altrimenti al prossimo episodio.